to start off, I just wanted to say thank you so much for making such a beautiful album. It's been such a pleasure going back and listening to it in preparation for our chat. And, you know, the tracks that I thought were my favourites change every time. Really? And there's always like new lyrics or different like flourishes that I notice. And I feel like that's always a sign of like a real work of art. So thank you for making it. How does it feel for it to be in the world?
Thank you. I think I feel a sense of calmness within myself that feels unfamiliar. I feel like I've lived maybe carrying this work within me, wanting to let it out for so long, but it took me a few years to maybe sharpen my tools, you know, and get to a place where I could make something like this, and having the right people around me to also help me create this vision. So I feel like since it's been out into the world, I've been able to kind of like breathe in a way that I haven't really felt before. So it feels very special, you know.
Maybe to start, could you tell me a bit about the title? Because there's a lot in there. I just wanted to know what that phrase, devotion and the Black Divine, means to you.
Yeah, you're going in with the deep questions already. Yeah. As you know, I'm very inspired by like bell hooks and just the Black women who have reformed the way that we think about love. And I thought that this idea of devotion felt very important to include in the title, not only because of the importance of that word and what it means in the world, but also because I think this is a work of devotion. You know, it's me devoting myself to the people in the community for whom I make this music, you know, coming from a place where Blackness has felt very like critiqued, like at least for me, just growing up. I had to work really, like, not hard to embrace, but like to really stand in my pride of that, and really aligning that with like divinity was really important to me, because I think that there's so much divinity in Blackness. I don't want to like get too specific about it really as well, because I think the cool thing is that people can kind of draw their own interpretations.
I love that idea of the kind of the openness of it, that it's not fixed, that then different people can sort of read into what the devotion and the Black Divine means to them. Yeah. And I think that's, I feel like there's kind of like mystery, there's something mysterious about it.
Yeah. I'm really into like mysticism and like spirituality, and even behind the artwork, we look at all of these like sort of objects, and I'm thinking about how do you take something really simple and like pour magic into it. I think that the album title also does that. You know, there's a magic in it.
I think that's kind of what I was getting at about, you know, the re-listening. Like there is magic in it, and the magic kind of reveals itself in different ways on different listens. I wanted to ask you about, your sort of writing process and how that kind of flows for you. Do you come up with lyrics first? Do you have melodies? Like, what's that process look like for you?
I feel like for me, it's all about finding a state of flow. And in the past, I would spend a lot of time constructing my melodies. And then I would find that things would maybe be a bit like rigid. So my process like shifted a little bit, where I would just start to like freestyle a lot more, and I would record sort of what came out to me when I hit that moment of inspiration. So I could be singing for however long, you know, it might be 30 minutes, it might be less than that, it might be an hour or more, but something will emerge. Like, for example, like a lot of the Deus ideas like just came out in one go, and same with My World. It's, you know, I didn't come back to it to rewrite certain parts. And then from there, I sort of like pick out the themes that come up. And even with Deus, for example, I was just sitting there, and the I think because I'd just been working on the Brazilian project, I was learning Portuguese, and I was thinking about like worship and praise and spirituality. So automatically just the Deus just came up to me, and I was like, should we keep that? And Josh was like, yeah, we should absolutely keep it, because that's what came out of you.
It makes me think of Beverly Glenn Copeland, who kind of talks about music sort of coming to him, like almost like he's like got these antennae, and it's just about getting into that state where you can listen and channel, but it's not about you and your will and your ego, and obviously that's part of it somewhere along the line, but does that sort of resonate?
For me, the music that I feel the most connected to is the one that kind of like flows through me, where I've let myself be free enough to really listen and allow the ideas to flow beyond like my ego, beyond my self-criticism. Is this good enough? Is this not good? Like, what should it be? And there's a feeling that I can feel in my body when I've hit that spot. you know?
And it's not an effort. It's not like, it's about letting go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You recorded the album live to tape.
Yeah.
How does that affect the process of recording? Because I guess like you can't just sort of do multiple revisions.
Yeah.
Is that also part of that kind of, trying to tap into that flow?
For me, I was like, well, why do I enjoy my live shows so much more than my recorded music? And then I met this producer called Andrew Sarlo, who produces with like Nick Hakim, and he did Dijon's new album. And he was like, well, you should try recording exactly the way that you would play a live show. No click, nothing, like just go straight for it. And I love that advice. And I think since we've made the Anaiis and Grupo Cosmo album in that way, and I think even in an even more raw way than this record, it's like made me feel a lot happier with what I'm hearing back, you know? Because everyone's in the room, everyone's felt the magic, and then it's like, yep, we got it. That was the take.
And even if it's not perfect, like I think, because there's a vulnerability that comes with that, right? Like not being able to sort of like finesse and make things sort of sheeny and perfect, like allowing the flaws to be part of it.
It's also maybe a practice for me because I'm someone who's very self-critical. So to learn to embrace the flaws and to see the beauty in it. You know, if I listen to Nina Simone, it's not like perfectly on pitch, like, but that's the beauty of it all. Like, the imperfections are where the human gets to connect with the other, you know?
Also, there's just like such a lovely, warm sound to it. Like, I for me
that
personally,
also, yes, I forgot to mention.
When things are too clean, I'm just like, no, I love, and I think that's, I hear so many other kind of voices and sounds and genres on the record, and I'm reminded of so many artists, and I think I'll say a bit about that later, but it's that warmth of that kind of analog sound. You can't really beat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just drawing more on this kind of idea of intimacy and vulnerability. Obviously, the themes on the record are very deep and profound, and obviously motherhood is like a major theme on this album. Do you feel like becoming a mother has sort of shifted your approach to music making?
It's been the biggest catalyst for everything that I am now, because I feel like I was sort of reborn as a woman, like after I gave birth to my son, and it changed the way that I write, how I write. I've had to create these moments where I'm like, okay, I've got like 10 days, and this is a time where I can completely disconnect from my day-to-day routine responsibilities, and I get to just be an artist for this amount of time. And a lot of people are sometimes like surprised, oh, you did all of this in like such a short amount of time. But I think it's because you're always sort of working, you're always like downloading ideas, and you're always thinking about stuff, and then because the space was created for it all to come out, it was able to come out in that period of time. But that's also a symptom of like, being a parent, not being able to like spend the same amount of time and focus on, whatever I was doing before. So the second thing is that, again, like being a mother also created so much space for me, like to become more gracious, like more loving, more tender with myself, maybe less judgmental. Because I think I would have had to be like very not too judgmental to make this album, because if not, I would like really get in my head about a lot of the decisions that we made. But yeah, so that was like a big shift for me. And then, finally it's about, I'm always aware of how my son will discover me once he's an adult, or if something was to happen to me and he just listens to my songs, like what is he receiving from it? Yeah, so that's like really shifted my approach and the way that I choose to say the things that I say, and the level of like love I want to pour into it. Yeah.
Well, should we hear My World? Because that's a song about him.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's listen to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to press play.
trusted, and just when I thought that I couldn't take anymore, you gave me the strength to keep holding on. My world becomes beyond me. I found the courage to love. I see the world in new colors, so clear like night and day. First time I heard you cry, I knew you took my breath away. Now I could never imagine life any other way. You make it all worth it.
This song really sort of stands out, you know, against the rest of the tapestry of the album to a certain degree. And because it had this sort of classic feel to it, I think it sort of inspired me to write about this feeling that I think is a timeless feeling. You know, that feeling of love that I'm speaking about is one that will be felt from forever until forever, you know?
It just sort of makes me think of those classic like 1960s
Yeah.
soulful songs. And this is, again, one of the lovely things about the record is that you've got this very sweet sound, and then other tracks are a lot more kind of haunting and dark, almost kind of grungy at
Yeah,
times, like Dreamer 2. Your music is very often sort of categorized within like the soul R&B genre. Does that bother you at all? Like, do you feel limited at all by these kind of categorizations?
I don't think in genre, you know, and I think it's just when it gets out into the world and people try to categorize it, it becomes really frustrating when like you're trying to speak to an audience that could connect to your work, but because it's being directed at people, a certain group of people, it's like not reaching the people who could actually connect with it. And that's where I get a bit upset, because to me it's like, this is just indie alternative soul that's like ethereal and has all of these different influences. And what can it be, all of that, you know?
Do you feel like it's also sort of being a black artist, sort of like, okay, let's just put you in the kind of R&B soul category, and it's not to diminish those genres, because of course you hear those influences and there's, you know, they're incredible in their own right, but it's just it's a little bit sort of tick boxy.
Exactly, it is, and it's incredibly like limiting in certain ways. But the other way that I'm trying to see it now is that, you know, black music, and I think especially with like D'Angelo passing and talking, like looking back at some of his interviews, like talking about funk music and like black music, you know, rhythm and blues, like when you take it there, all the way back there, you're like, it's at the root of everything. So maybe then in that place, I feel okay with it. How do we expand like the umbrella under which we see R&B the same way that we expand the umbrella under which we see blackness? You know, it's not one sound of one particular era. It's forever, and it encompasses like so many different sounds, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's just, you know, there are so many ways in which you have to challenge these limiting factors, whether it's kind of genre, whether it's within ourselves. It's like just resist.
I mean, honestly, like this is the thing, like resist, like that speaks to me so much. And I get into a lot of fights with my mom about this, because she's like, stop resisting so much, like just give them what they want. No, she's no, but you know, Moonlight is a track on the album that really specifically touches on that. For me, it really is speaking to, you know, a young black woman who is being told that, you know, you have to work like 3 times as hard to get to the same places. Like, you shouldn't expect that, because like that doesn't happen for black girls, or do you know what I'm saying? And this is me being like, fuck that. Like, we get to dream big, we get to do it all. And we're seeing like artists break all of these boundaries and glass ceilings, I guess. You know what I mean? Because the most important part is that we don't internalize like these narratives. I feel like that's the real work, because when you start to think, oh yeah, actually, well, because of how I'm being perceived, I can only do that, then you've set the cage around yourself. You know what I mean?
And maybe we should play a little bit of that as well. Yeah, because I know we've got a different one lined up.
Yes.
But yeah.
stay alive with that unresolved feeling. Everybody around you can see the glass ceiling. Deep down we all know that you never fell short. Always over-delivered, you gave it your all. Now you're moving with intent, you found a new direction. Travel from the heart and you might reach a new dimension. Took every disappointment in your stride, never looked back, no. Again, you know how to walk in your power. Proud cause you know you're putting on your hours. I know you want it, but you need fullness. At times you need a little reassurance. You're wiser now, you do no validation. It's a constant elevation. Cause you got every reason to wanna reach the stars. No need to ask permission to be yourself from the start.
I didn't know. That's fire. Jacob. That's very appropriate for that song, actually.
Do you want to say a little bit about, maybe the visuals? Because there's an incredible video that accompanies it, and you're sort of in this amazing like Martian landscape. Tell me about the video and recording that.
We shot like all of the visuals for this album in Jamaica. So we're thinking like, how do you like, what's the most Martian landscape that we can find in Jamaica? And we found this like red earth quarry, and it felt so appropriate for this. The fact that like no matter how much you take from it, like no matter people are digging and stealing so much from the earth, and actually it just regenerates always, and the plants come back to life. And I think that's, for me, is like symbolism of like what this song is about. Like, you know, you kind of grow up in this world and you're going to experience like your traumas and your disappointments and your heartbreaks, but the possibility for like healing is always there, you know, and the possibility again for like the imagination to take us beyond like what we know and what we've seen is so crucial. I think just bringing in the dancers and them like sort of, you know, I don't even know how to describe their movement, but they were calling in something else, you know, something otherworldly, something beautiful. We've sort of created this new world in which we feel safe, in which we feel like loved, and we feel this sense of ease.
With the visuals, do you have like an idea of it when you're making the music, like, or is it something that comes much later?
It came later for this specific album. I just sat a lot with the themes that I wanted to explore, and it felt like it really needed to be situated in nature, because one of the sort of primary like themes that kept coming up for me after I finished making the album was this idea of the reverence of nature. I found that nature is where I find like healing. I feel like I've experienced like so much anxiety in my life. I've carried like so much darkness on my shoulders, you know, and you know, say when I'm in Jamaica, I just feel this sense of relief. I often look at human behavior in parallel to like the natural world, and I'm like, oh, the chaos is okay. Like it's all part of us, and we are a part of this. And everything becomes a bit easier for me. So I wanted to like situate the record like visually there.
For me personally, that's where I feel the divine is, like when you're in some kind of epic natural landscape and you realise how small we are. And
exactly.
It's a holding feeling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly it.
The video for Deus Deus recorded as the same kind on the same trip.
Yeah.
And you included members of the Maroon community, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you want to tell us a bit about, tell me a bit about the Maroons and why you wanted to include them?
When I'm thinking again about like resistance, including the Maroons just felt like absolutely natural. And we got this incredible opportunity to meet Hope and her mom, who feature primarily in that video. And they are sort of holding that legacy forward, because the Maroons, they live in Moortown, but kind of a closed off community a little bit. So I think to spend time with them, like talk to them about their history and about like their role, like for the liberation of like Black Jamaica, in Jamaica, I don't want to say Black Jamaica, but just felt like really important to feature them into this, because I think the album is very aligned with, Nani and that history.
And like, resistance comes in so many forms. Like for them, for their history, it was literally like resisting the colonial system. But even what you're talking about, like resisting the limiting thoughts we have, resisting, like there are so many layers to
absolutely. And their use of like nature and how they were, connected to the land to be able to fight off the British, and like their resilience, And so bringing them in, I think in terms of what they represent and the symbolism of it felt really important. And for me, a lot of my work, like, yes, it is about like self, but it is very much about like liberation. I'm always thinking about how do we liberate ourselves from like the oppressive systems that we are existing within. And it just happens that to me, you kind of have to start first with your mind. And once you've gotten beyond that point, you can break all kinds of fucking boundaries,
People often don't see like the kind of work that we do on ourselves as part of political resistance, but the two things like are so entwined, because when we're doing that work for ourselves, then we're more able to show up on the outside.
100%. And you have to be able to recognize like the ways in which you are being oppressed. And a lot of people don't. I mean, there's this quote that we use on an old video, but it was this Alice Walker quote when it's like, most people give away their power because they think they have none, So when you've been made to feel powerless, you first have to regain your power. You have to recognize like the ancestry that you come from and like the legacy that's behind you, and that you've got like all of this history behind you, so you can stand on this and you can go and demand something different out of this world. And for us artists, often it is about introducing ideas or thoughts or creating these like worlds that look different, that can, it all begins in the mind. Like everything begins in the imagination before it is created, So that's kind of how I see sort of my engagement with it all.
So obviously the visuals in Jamaica, album recorded here in London, and just
recorded
before
in this exact studio,
in this very room, magic was made. And then obviously your previous release was in Brazil. Like, do you find like these different locations kind of bring out different aspects? How are they all kind of in this record somehow?
My sort of background is that I was born in the south of France, but my parents are originally from Senegal. But I moved around a lot. Like since I was 10 years old, I've lived in Dublin and then lived in Senegal, then I lived in California, lived in New York, and then moved to London. And I'm someone who feels like I'm always discovering like what it means to be Black in this world. And I've had to relearn the different experiences that brings, because being Black in France is very different from being Black in Oakland, California, and it's very different from being Black in New York, and extremely different from being Black here, and very different from being Black in Brazil. So I always feel like the conversation across the diaspora is sort of maybe my like role in it, because for so long I never felt a sense of home anywhere. I was just like, what is this? Like, what is my experience on this world? Like, I just feel a bit lost, And I think my music is a place where I get to kind of make sense of all of these different experiences, and where I get to like join things up. And I remember when I went to Bahia for the first time and I met Luigi Luna, I found so many pieces of Senegal in Salvador. And that's how we wrote To That Core, because we were talking about like the sisterhood that we felt with each other. And so for me, like, this is how I find myself, through that like sort of searching and joining up the dots and figuring out where is home, in sound and also in place. And I don't know if that really answered the question. I feel like I got a bit.
No, I think it does. And also like the idea that like music, the imagination, these creative spaces can be places where things can be like knitted back together again.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Right, I want to play Call Me because so this was a track on the album that like on first listen maybe I overlooked, and then going back and listening again, like it just spoke to me. All of a sudden it kind of like started shining out, and it's a special one.
Yeah, does it
I love this one. This is one that, I was saying at the start that like re-listening, different tracks stand out. And I feel like maybe when I first heard the record, this one I kind of passed over. And then, when I was listening this week, I was like, wow, this is amazing. It just reminded me, I love the psychedelic aspect. Made me think of like Funkadelic and Prince. And do you want to tell me a bit about this track?
So actually the story behind this is that In Real Time, which is the song that comes just before this, was this kind of long guitar part that went to like many places. Call Me A and Call Me B, and In Real Time sort of all came from the same sort of source. But I loved the fact that like we kept finding like new ways. It was like one of those cubes that you just change it like different colors and different things emerge. And I think this is the song where I allow myself to be like a bit more like playful, and there's maybe like a slightly childish energy. Like I even think with the lyrics, I was pretty uncomfortable with the lyrics. Like call me, like it's so like basic, but it's just like that thing. Sometimes like it really is just how you feel, like And for a long time when I was making this album, like this used to be one of my favorites because it just felt really playful and a bit childish. And I did hear like some of what you're talking about, like kind of started to emerge as the more and more we worked on it, and like started adding like these different like BVs, and then these like sort of references that are like more funky started to come up, But ultimately I just loved the fact that it kept transforming, and revealing different parts of itself. And I think that that's like really special.
Yeah, and that's also the effect that it had on me as well. It's sort of like, oh, suddenly it called out to me.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the idea of like a concept album, because in today's world, so it's quite rare that we listen to like an album from start to finish. Like people just like pluck their favorite tracks on first listen, put them in a playlist, and then maybe the rest of the album is like lost to them. I do it. I'm guilty of it as well. But like, do you see this record as like a concept album? Was it kind of made sort of thinking about a whole?
I mean, 100%. I've always thought about albums in that way. I feel like all of the thinking around how it was also presented in the world, and again, like from the title to the story, like the way that it was sequenced, just kind of like the entire world that we created around it, from the visual to the way the fonts and the graphic design, all of that sort of helped to make it feel like a conceptual record. But for me, I always think about bodies of work. I never really create things like on their own. And it's also because I feel like you can't really understand me by listening to one track. You can't listen to one song and be like, oh, this is Anaiis. Like I think this allows sort of the many faces of who I am to exist alongside each other.
The magic is in like how the different tracks and elements interact sometimes, isn't it? It's like listening to one and then something that comes afterwards that totally changes the way you feel.
That's so important, because nothing in the world like exists in isolation. And so, for example, like the interludes, or having like Adrienne Marie Brown or Sanaa like speaking provides like additional context to the lyrics or to the sound that you just heard,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next, actually, because you don't have any sort of musical features on the album, but you have these voices that sort of drift in and out. And you've mentioned a couple of the names. Like, tell me who's on who those voices are, and why you wanted to bring them in, and what they're saying.
The album really didn't call for features. For some reason, when I listened to the songs, I just couldn't hear anyone on it, and I didn't want to force it. But I often like to cite, the thinkers and the activists of the past that have shaped my work, and people that I feel like I'm, sort of living in their legacy. And for this album, I really thought I want to bring in the contemporary voices and the people who are doing that work now, the activists and the artists. I think in order, you hear first Adrienne Marie Brown, whose work I've been following for years. I've been really touched by their work. And then the next person, I believe, is Sanaa, who's a really close friend of mine, who's a poet, and I think they refer to themselves as like a liberation psychologist.
Wow.
And then you also hear Jatavia Gary, who's I think just a multidisciplinary artist. I went to a talk that she did at the Serpentine, I think, and I really connected to the thoughts and the things that she was speaking about. So I just reached out to all of them, and I was just like, do you want to contribute to this body of work? I sent them the record and they listened to it, and then this is what they sent me back.
They almost kind of like unlock the themes a little bit, like,
yes.
And it's nice because they do have like a musical quality. Like you're not necessarily like listening to every word. They kind of wash over you, but then maybe like a certain phrase will will reach out, call out, and you'll notice it, and then listen slightly differently.
Yeah. I've had to do a lot of work on self-love, and people like Sana have been really vital voices in my life that have helped me like stay clear of, thought patterns that were really detrimental to me and weren't helping me to like sort of stand in my own divinity. And so I thought it'd be a beautiful offering to like bring specifically her voice into this, because I know not everyone has like that person in their life that lets them know like that they're worthy and that like they're enough, and that it sounds really basic, but it's so crucial to the foundation of the kind of life that you're living, and if your sense of worthiness isn't where it needs to be, you will tolerate a lot of the shit that you shouldn't be tolerating in your life. So I think with my sort of growing into myself and becoming a mother and wanting to, I think, pour a nurturing energy, like Sana felt like the right voice. She is like my best friend, but hopefully she can also be a friend to the people who are listening to this music.
Do you have like a kind of a wish, a hope, a dream for the record and who it might reach and how it might make people feel?
I'm really happy with the people who have connected with it so far, and the way people have reached out to me to let me know how it's made them feel. Like, feels really good. And I think to be a source of positive energy just feels really good. Like, I think for a long time I like grew up really like admiring like sort of protest music and like kind of hating on like love songs. There's no like traditional like romantic love songs on this record, but I think it is an offering of love. And I started to really value the fact that you can shift like someone's vibration in the world. And I started thinking about the fact that every time somebody listens to a song, they're emitting, an energy out into the world. And so like, what do I want that frequency to be? And how do I want it to like shift people? And if it can make people feel good, if it can make aware, like alive in some way, I feel like that's like really what I want. And, obviously I hope that it can reach like lots of people, but more importantly, I think it's given me a really good foundation on which to keep growing and experimenting and sharing. I'll try not to project like too much into, what it could.
Just change the world.
Yeah. No, I don't have like such crazy expectations, but I just hope it makes people feel good in some way. And I'm excited to meet the people that are connected to this work once I like get out on the road and like sing for people, I
was going to ask you like what is sort of next? Do you have a kind of a sense of what might follow?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on like I'm kind of switching directions a little bit. I'm working on something a bit more like folky, because I'm just like really into that right now. I just like been wanting to just write straight to guitar. I connect to the sound of the guitar more than I do like any other instrument, really. So I think after going for something that's like kind of big sounding and having the choir, having the strings, I just wanted to do something that was more focused on like the storytelling, maybe a bit more personal. Not that this isn't personal, this is very, it's like, it is personal, it's very vulnerable, but it's also like pretty large. And I think I just wanted to like come back here, like create a bit of a little nucleus. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but who knows what that's going to like turn into.
Well, I look forward to hearing the folk record when it comes. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you so much. It's been so nice to speak with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to discover the record with me and talk through it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Oh.
Yes.
I feel like we need a big hug.
I know we do, right? So, oh no, I can't get up.
We're not allowed.